more of you than we expected. Next year we'll get a larger room. Let me just make some introductions. For those of you who don't know, but I imagine you do by now, I'm Joan King, the Director of the Career Center. To my left is Brett Gilbert, Deputy Director. To my right is Al Cernia, a 2001 grad. And to my far left is Jill Backer, our Associate Director for Employer Relations. We're going to talk to you about getting past OCI. Oh, let me ask you, how many are second years? Ooh. How many are third years? Okay. All right, so what's that? But everything we're going to say, more or less, applies to all of you. The purpose of this program is really twofold. It's to put fall OCI in perspective so that you can get beyond it and do the things you need to do to get a good summer and postgraduate job. And so let me first start by putting it in perspective for you, and then the others will join with some more information. On campus, it feels, I think, for most of you, like fall OCI is all there is to the job search. And it's just one aspect of the job search, albeit it's an easy way. You put a resume in a couple of boxes and someone comes along and interviews you and hopefully there's a job offer at the end. But the fact is that isn't the world. That isn't the way the world works. Now continues to report that most jobs, 75% in fact, nationally, now the National Association for Law Placement, 75% are obtained through means other than fall OCI. That accords with our experience here, where roughly 25% of each class finds summer or postgraduate jobs through fall OCI. Most jobs, in fact, are found through what they call self-initiated contact, which we would call targeted mailings, networking, that type of thing. Most large firm jobs, as you know, are obtained before graduation. But what you may not know is that nationally, 50 to almost 80% of the jobs are also obtained before graduation. Most of these were obtained through networking, targeted mailings, in other words, not initiated by the employer. Now, I said that most of our statistics are similar. Roughly 25% obtained through fall OCI. And here's what's important for you to understand, that at least 50% of you will obtain your jobs. Another 50% will obtain your jobs before graduation. And we're going to tell you basically how to do that. But what this means is that you're going to have to work hard. It's definitely a harder go than an on-campus program. Mainly, you'll concentrate on smaller law firms, say 2 to 50 lawyers roughly. The good news there is that grades, by and large, are not going to matter, and that's very important to recognize. Experience will matter, so building your resume now is very important. The salary will be lower than the firms that come on campus, definitely. But you will also have a life, which for many of you will be important. You know, the debt is what distorts salary. Now also reports that most jobs do not pay $125,000, that most are in the $55,000 range. And the range of salaries in law firms now that you can think about, that you can expect, are roughly within the 45 to 80 range. And that depends on the vagaries of the market and any particular firm. In government, the salaries will be as government salaries are. For public interest, of course, they will be lower. But so it's just so important to get beyond the concept of major firms and the occasional major government organization and move on with doing the things you need to do. So I'm going to hand that over to Brett now.
Hi. Like Joan said, this is not about dropping resumes in boxes, but I'm going to walk you through the things you can do now and the things you have to wait for to get a job. And not only a summer job, but a graduate job for your 3rd years. And it's pretty much the same thing. What are we talking about? We're talking about firms under 50, pretty much. Most firms bigger are looking now. Firms under 50, hardly anyone looks before February. That's when virtually all employers begin looking for employees, for lawyers or law students for the summer, beginning in February. Jill will talk to you about the efforts she's made and what she's hearing from firms that she's visiting, and it looks as though it's going to be a more robust spring recruiting season than we have seen, but I'll let her talk to you about that. But what to do now? Are you working now? Are you taking a clinic? Before we came over here, I looked on EmployerNet, and there are about 30 or 40 part-time firm jobs sitting there. It would be a good idea, if you're not doing anything now, to get a part-time job. That makes you more attractive to employers, and those are the things that employers care about. A lot of you have told my story. I worked in a smaller firm for many, many years before coming here. It started off with just a solo practitioner, and eventually made me his partner, and we got another partner, another counsel, and a couple of associates. We grew, and eventually I had enough of it and didn't want to practice anymore after 13 years. But you can go and you do a lot of things in a smaller or mid-sized firm. What do? Well, they don't lock you into a library doing research and writing all the time like the bigger sweatshop firms do. It's no secret that I am not a large firm lover when it comes to getting experience and doing the kinds of things that lawyers are known for doing. The first week I worked for this solo practitioner, he was on trial. I had to go cover a case in housing court. We did criminal defense, but it was a housing violation. And the judge said, Mr. Gilbert, sit down. I told Mr. Brofman that there would be no more extensions. We're going to go to trial now. And I learned very quickly how to handle myself in front of a judge and get the confidence in me to be a lawyer. And those are the things you do in working in a mid or small size firm. You are, for civil side, you're taking depositions much sooner than if you're in a bigger firm. You're meeting with clients, you're writing major briefs, your motions on the criminal side, you're doing arraignments and bail hearings and everything much, much sooner. So if you want to do the kinds of things that lawyers are known for doing, you want to work in a smaller or medium-sized firm. And what did I always look for when I hired? I never once asked for grades because I didn't care what you got in real property. That just didn't matter to me. I wanted, the interview was the most important thing for me. Did it develop a sense of confidence in me that I could send you somewhere and not embarrass the firm? I could send you to a judge, to a client, to another lawyer, and you would come back to me and report on what went on. So interviews are very important, and I'll talk about interview prep sessions. You must have them with us when you begin to get interviews so you're not making mistakes. The other thing important was writing sample. Get a good writing sample. In an upper level writing requirement or through a job, I wanted to see how well you write because you are going to be doing some writing, just not as much as people in big firms are. You'll be doing other things as well. And in experience, I wanted to see on your resume that you weren't green and didn't know what you were doing around a law firm or a government office or whatever. That's what they care about. So if you're not working now, you might want to think about working just to make yourself more attractive compared to everybody else in this room who may be looking for similar jobs. Remember, it's just not you. You may be great for a job, but it's in comparison with everybody else. And how do you make yourself more attractive to everybody else? Right now, when you leave here, log on to EmployerNet and change your personal profile if you haven't done so already to get emails for law student summer associate in whatever practice settings you want to work, law firm, government, public interest, whatever, or law student permanent for 3rd years. Most employers start looking in February, but some will jump the gun. I think I just saw one yesterday or today for a summer associate position, not an on-campus interviewing position firm. They're just looking earlier. So you don't want to miss out on the handful that will come between now and February. So change your profile now to get those emails. Come January, you want to look in 2 places online. normal employer net listings that you will be getting those emails from, or you could do your own search, and the Spring on-campus interviewing link on the Career Center homepage. It flips from fall to spring in January, and those jobs are for the firms who are coming on campus, and they're not on EmployerNet, so you have to look in two places, on the EmployerNet normal website and on the Spring on-campus interviewing link that will tell you who's coming on campus. What to do now with regard to looking for firms. You can do research now. What you do is you get your Lexis password, go onto lexis.com, find the Martindale Hubble link. If you have experience in a particular field of law, and come to see us if you don't think you do, because sometimes jobs you have experience in something and don't really know it, and we could like figure with your resume and make that appear stronger than it is now. And you may have 2 or 3 resumes depending on what kind of firms or government offices you're applying to, stressing different things. Do a practice area search on Martindale Hubble. If you don't know how to do that, come see us. We have a handout on that. What that gives you is a list of firms, let's say, that do real estate law. And you can put in the city, the size, alumni if you want to. Brooklyn Law School will tell you what firms have alumni in them. And you'll get this list. It'll tell you the name, the address, the phone, the website if they have them. What it won't tell you is the contact person in that firm to write to. What then you have to do is come in and get our database disk of New York and New Jersey firms. You can either get it in disk form, which is already in mail merge format, or hard copy. And that, we've called up all these firms in Martindale Hubble, and said, who should a student write to if they want to send a cover letter? So you compare your real estate practice area list to our database that's already in mail merge format, and you will get the names of the people who should be you should address those cover letters to. It's a 2-step process. But don't send those letters out yet. It's much too early. Wait till late February or early March, and we might even change our opinion depending upon what Jill is hearing. So you want to see us in January to get our latest feeling of when the letter should go out. Because if she's hearing on this, we're going to wait a couple months because of the economy, you may want to send it out until March or late March. We'll see.
I'm going to interrupt for a second. There may be some of you whose grades are in the ballpark for the larger firms, even though you may not have gotten anything through our fall on-campus program. In that case, you will want to do a mailing to the other large firms who did not come on campus. That's also, this is the directory that Brett was talking about. So I just want to be clear on that. What Brett means by not doing it now is for most of you who will not be looking at the larger firms. And I just want to put that in perspective for a moment. This is all from Martindale Hubble. This is New York City. This thin first part is over 51. And this very thick part is 2 to 50 attorneys. So even though it seems in New York City that everything is large, it really isn't. The vast majority is small. And as the ABA found out several years ago, of the lawyers practicing nationwide, 80% of them are practicing in firms of under 25 attorneys or in government. So those of you who are not going to be in the large firms, which is roughly 75% of you, are definitely in a majority. Sorry, just wanted to clarify.
But don't send those letters out yet. Wait, have them ready so you push a button and they get spit out in mail merge format. In the meantime, it doesn't have to be this week, but soon, maybe, certainly by January, you should be coming in to see us to make sure your resume and cover letters look good, that they say the right things, that they're in the right kind of format that lawyers have come to expect. And so you're ready to go. So when you hear the word that you can send these things out now, they can just go. In my firm, we never posted an ad for a lawyer. For secretaries that were a pain in the neck to get, we always posted ads for secretaries. But lawyers, we expected the resumes to just come, and they did. And you're hoping that your resume hits somebody's desk when they're looking for someone and they're in a mood to look for someone. You don't want to send it too early because they're not even going to be thinking about the summer or after the bar exam. And you don't want to send it too late. So it's kind of tricky, and so that's why you want to be in contact with us about but it's certainly not going to be before February 1st. And in general, it's not going to be after April 1st for that first run. Some people do it twice. They do it in the middle of February, the middle of April, just to cover their bases. It depends upon how much effort you want to put into it, really. It's all up to you. What else can you do now? Join a local bar association. Get to know lawyers and practice. If you don't have experience in a particular field but are interested in it, join the bars. It's like $20 a year or something. The two big ones around are the New York County Lawyers Association, nycla.org, or the Association of the Bar of the City of New York, abcny.org. And you can sign up online, see their committees. The committee year has started already, but you can still join up and check it out. And it's a good thing to put on our resume. The State Bar Association, the ABA, I never cared about those because I get a magazine once a month. So it's the local bar associations that care, because those are the people you meet. You go to a committee meeting once a month and you get to meet people.
You have to apply to be on a committee, but those two bar associations will take student members. Committee membership and serving on a committee not only looks good on a resume, is actually incredible networking. So even though the committee year has started, that's certainly an option for you to consider.
And when you begin to get those interviews come the spring, see us. Most people are in the realm of acceptable interview conduct, but some people don't even know it. They have little quirky answers to things that just don't sound right. And you want to come in with the confidence that you don't have to worry about your performance. And everything's right. All you have to worry about is the questions and your answers to them, and not how you're presenting them. And the way you get over that worry is to just have yourself checked out, in a sense, and let us check you out and make sure that everything's fine, and go in with a level of confidence that you don't have to worry about yourself. And that's pretty much what you can do now. It's a little bit of working now, but a lot of waiting, since not many firms will be, or any employers, will be looking between now and February. So don't think that, oh my God, I don't have a job, what, I have to be doing something. Well, you can be doing something, but it's not everything I think you should be doing. You have to hold back. Yeah, the bar association. Oh, networking means, in essence, telling everyone you know that you're looking for a job. I mean, and because you never know who they know.
Not asking for a job.
No, just letting them
you're
know.
looking.
I mean, Kim Walton, the writer of those books, always tells a story, who knows if it's true or not, but about a student who told his garbage man that he knew his father or somebody was a lawyer, and he got in touch with, and he got a job out of it because he told his garbage man he was looking for a job. But just letting people know you're looking, so in case they know anybody, they can contact you. In the manual, you can come see us. You can print out student business cards that say, you know, you're a candidate for a JD at Brooklyn Law School. If you want a handy thing to hand to someone, either at a committee meeting or anywhere, not your whole resume, you can hand them a business card with your information on it and tells them you're going to school and when you graduate. And that's kind of a handy thing. Run those past us, because if you pass yourself off as a lawyer now, you're in big trouble. But there are ways to do it, and a lot of people do that. And it's kind of handy to have them in your pocket. That's about it.
Al was in your position in his third year at this very time. So we've asked him to come back, and he very graciously agreed to do that. To talk to you.
Okay, my name is Al Lacernia, and as Joan said, I didn't get a summer position or my current job through OCI. So I had to utilize the resources that were offered through the Career Center, and also kind of work very hard and be persistent in finding employment. So what really worked for me? Number one was to have a positive attitude, to work with the Career Center, and to really to network. And the attitude, your attitude is key, and really persistence pays off. You have to be persistent. Nothing's just going to come your way. You have to actively search it out. And actually finding a job can be a job in itself, a full-time job. And you have to be committed to it. And really, I mean, what I kept saying to myself in my third year is, I'm not going to leave or I'm going to leave no stone unturned. I'm going to look everywhere and do everything I possibly can to find a job. And I felt that would be a very positive attitude, and it would kind of distract me from the negative aspect of saying to myself, well, I don't have a job already, because I wouldn't be thinking about that. I'd be pursuing finding a job. And it's important to utilize all your resources, to know about them and to use them as well. And I found working with the Career Center to be extremely helpful, and that's how I obtained my current position at Ford Marin. I'm a third-year litigation associate. And the first thing I did was I had to build a strong resume. And I worked with the Career Center. They had handouts which provided sample resumes, and also working with the counselors in editing the resume. So it was just flawless, because it has to be flawless, because if there's one flaw, then that's just reason for someone to throw it out. Also, with mock interviews, I attended not just one mock interview, but I kept practicing, because I wanted to be as good as possible and to be as confident as possible when I actually got an interview, because I didn't want to fumble on the 1-yard line, so to speak, once I got into the door. I also used the employer net and constantly checked the listings with the Career Center to see what firms were seeking resumes. And I guess one thing that I regret that I didn't do, which I think is really important, now looking back at my education from the standpoint of a practitioner, is to get a part-time job or an internship. And there's a ton of them available, and in particular areas of the law. So you can pick something that you're really interested in. Like, I don't know, if you're into trademarks, if you're into or intellectual property, or litigation as a whole, or transactional work. You can search out an internship or a part-time job where you get to learn something about the law and work for a practitioner or a judge or a government agency, and perhaps parlay that into a full-time position, either at that place where you interned, or by using your experience and parlaying that to a job at another law firm or government agency. And a lot of times at smaller firms, the practice areas are more particularized. They specialize in a certain area. So, for example, if you like securities litigation or securities work, and you intern with a firm that does that, and you don't end up getting a job with them, or you do, you can speak about your experience at a job interview, and perhaps someone at a firm will think that's great that you know something about his or her practice area, and you could parlay that into a permanent position. What else? I also, I can't stress enough that networking is key, and it's so true what was just stated, that you don't ask for a job, you just mention it, you throw it out into conversation. So this way you don't turn someone off, because when you're speaking with someone and you're asking for something, people tend to be turned off. But if you just throw it out there, it's not awkward, and someone, a friend or relative will remember, and perhaps they'll pass that on. You never know. So you just throw it out in conversation, and you never know where that's going to lead. Another thing that I regret is joining a bar association. I think that's. I'm sorry. Attending the lectures. Sorry. And if you attend these lectures, you don't know who you're going to meet. And also you learn something about a particular area of the law. As I said, you can parlay that perhaps into a full-time position. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, what's also something that I regret that I didn't do that someone else did, a friend of mine, was to utilize my undergraduate alumni association. To get, contact your undergraduate alumni association, and I know that I went to Fairfield University, and they kept listings of attorneys that practice in New York City. So I would get a listing of all those individuals and their law firms and their addresses, and I could contact them, and also, send them a resume. But also, if you could perhaps give them a phone call, and just ask if you could have an informational interview. Not exactly you're asking them for a position, but you'd like to talk to them and get their opinion on what you should be doing, and perhaps what their practice of the law is, because people find that flattering sometimes. And in fact, not a Brooklyn grad, but this is a St. John's grad, contacted myself through Fairfield Alumni Network, and I was able to set up an informational interview with this individual, and I was flattered that he wanted to seek my advice. and I was able to give him some good advice that he was able to utilize in getting a job. So I would definitely check with your undergraduate alumni association, and also really to search EmployerNet every night, because there's no excuse for you not to log on. It's just very easy now, and also to check the postings with the Career Center. And I guess once you've worked on all these different aspects and you have a good resume and you get an interview, it's very important to prepare for your interviews very thoroughly, because the worst thing is to actually go through all this hard work and to get an interview and to kind of fumble because you weren't prepared. You want to do everything you can so that this way it wasn't your lack of preparation that resulted in you not getting a job. You want to really attack it full force. And what I mean is to research the firm. Now, there's so much information available on virtually every firm in the city, small, medium, and large. Because almost all firms have websites. And what's important is on websites, they also have links, recent publications that particular partners and associates worked on. So let's say you're at interviewing a particular firm, and you're going to be interviewing with so-and-so. You want to scan the website to see if that person wrote a law review article or any type of article for a legal publication. So you can have that under your belt, go into the interview and perhaps discuss that and be knowledgeable about that person's area of the law. And also, another thing that I notice or hear when I speak to other associates at the firm is a lot of interviewees don't know their own resume. You have to know your resume very well, be able to speak knowledgeably about it, and at great length. The interviewer so requests, because to say, well, I really don't remember my note. It was like 2 years ago. I don't remember what I did in Legal Writing 1. It's just not an excuse. You should really know everything you've worked on. If you're giving out a writing sample, know the subject matter of that writing sample, so you'll be able to discuss that. Because sometimes interviewers are just looking for a topic on which they can speak with their interviewee, so that they can determine whether the person has skills that can be developed and utilized by the firm. So to know your writing sample, to know your resume is really important. And also to know the general practice area of the firm. Not to go in cold, really. You should never go into an interview cold. You should know the general practice areas of the firm. So this way you can ask intelligent and specific questions, not just what's the personality of the firm, what the canned questions that interviewers hear of every candidate. And also, it's very important to follow up. And the reason you want to follow up right away is that the interviewer remembers you and says, oh yeah, that person was a good candidate. Let me work on that. Because people are consumed with their work. So to follow up is very important, with a tailored letter, really, that is tailored to the conversation you had with a particular attorney. And that's really what worked for me. I mean, my experience was I would check the listings, and I set up a meeting with Joan, and it just so happened that day there was a listing for Ford Marin, which is the firm that I work for. So it was this timing that was crucial. I got a jump on it. I was able to submit my resume. I ended up interviewing with the firm, and I got an offer. So it's important to just check every day and to periodically make appointments to speak with the Career Center representatives and counselors. So this way you can get a jump on things, and to always check. And also it's important to keep a copy of your resume, most current version, a writing sample, and any recommendations you have with you at all times. So let's say you're at the Career Center and something is just listed. You can automatically move on it, submit your resume, and you have a jump on a lot of people because the resume will get to the firm quicker. And perhaps they don't want to look at every single one that comes in. They'll just make a decision based on the resumes that come in that day or the next day. And you may have lost an opportunity by not having a resume with you to submit. So that's always a good thing to do, is to keep all your resumes, writing samples, or recommendations with you at all times.
Al, say a few words about working for a firm of the size you work.
Sure.
That's really what we're talking about.
Okay. I work for a firm that's 27 attorneys, and it's a boutique litigation firm. We practice commercial litigation, which is basically litigation of various corporations and so forth. And I particularly work on trademark matters. And it's true that at a smaller firm, since there's less associates and partners, each associate has a lot more responsibility. So it's so true that you get a lot more responsibility at a smaller firm. For example, I've drafted summary judgment motions. I've appeared in conferences in federal court. I've taken and defended depositions, and I guess I've only been practicing for 2 years. So it's a great way to develop skills, and that's really what the name of the game is in the practice of law.
I just want to jump in here. I speak to so many employers on a weekly and daily basis, and that always is what strikes me as the largest difference between in the practicing at the smaller firm versus the larger firm. It always baffled me that a 5th year at a 100+ attorney firm would never have taken a deposition before. I mean, you probably did your first year,
Yeah.
So I think that that's something to really look at when you're applying.
Yeah, so I guess really the moral of the story is that just because you don't get a job with a firm that has 600 associates in New York alone, it's really not the end of the world. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I say to myself, this is probably I was better off by not getting a job with a 600-person firm, because it's just more fun to be able to take the deposition instead of going on these massive, endless document reviews that a lot of associates at larger firms do. And I'm not saying that associates at larger firms perhaps don't have an opportunity to work on more substantive matters, but it's more likely at a smaller firm that you'll be delegated more responsibility, and it's a lot more fun. You can develop skills that you can parlay into a job after your first job in law school, and that getting into the mindset of actively seeking a job is a skill that you're going to need the rest of your life in terms of developing a client base, trying to jockey position to get better work at your firm. I mean, really, these are skills that go well beyond obtaining your first job, and also obtaining, as I said, a job after your first job out of law school. So you just really want to get into the mindset of really actively approaching this and not sitting back and saying, well, you know what, I should just throw my resume into the pile for OCI, because that's really not how it works. And really leaving no stone unturned is the attitude. Do everything you can.
Al, thanks very much. Jill, what are you hearing out there?
Well, let me just tell you a little bit about what I do, if you haven't before. The Career Center has always actively sought out job listings, but with the advent of my position being created, it's the first time that a person is doing it as their sole responsibility. All I do is go out to corporations and firms on a daily basis and talk to them about Brooklyn Law students, try to understand their hiring protocols, and bring back job listings. My target area is the small to medium firms as well as corporations, corporations of any size, and it's working. The Career Center has placed 3 or 4 people now in positions that I brought in the last 90 days. So what Al was saying about checking EmployerNet on a daily or bi-weekly basis is a good idea, because those things are coming in. I might come in at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and hand Joan a stack of things that are things for the students to apply to. So that point is well taken. The firms that I target are not the OCI firms, obviously. They're firms that don't have necessarily a standard hiring protocol. They hire when they have a need. And it's funny because all the great tools that are out there, like Martindale-Hubbell, I'm on Martindale-Hubbell once an hour when I'm in the office. But that is not even a finite source of all of the firms out there. If you're talking about firms of, say, 15 to 60 lawyers, in the tri-state area, that's something else that you might want to think about, not just Manhattan or New York City. There's hundreds of these firms, literally just hundreds. So, no stone unturned may mean a quite extensive research project. has been said, grades are not the number one thing to these people. When I say, what are you looking for in a candidate, probably one of the first things they say is experience. So if you're looking at me and saying, yeah, I'm studying, I can't work as well, that's valid, but you might want to think about something, even if it's just a couple hours a week for the resume, because they don't, although they'll look at prior work history, such as if you worked for a while before law school, that is, something that's valid. They really want to see the legal experience. The second thing that they'll always say to me is writing. They want to know that someone's a good writer. And the first thing that is put in front of them that you've written is your cover letter. These are firms that are reading these cover letters. I'm not sure how the larger firms do it, but it's of more importance at the small to medium firms that you write a cover letter that is not only well written, but tells a little bit more about yourself than perhaps a sterile resume does. Because they're going to make a call to you based on that. Personality. Everybody has one, good or bad. And the firms that, these types of firms, the smaller firms, when you walk into a firm, the first person you see is probably the receptionist. That receptionist might have been there since the inception of the firm, and her opinion's going to count. So don't walk in there and say, here's your guy. Make sure that you bring your personality with you through the front door, not just through the interview room. And the right fit is what's important to them. They're constantly saying to me when I say, what are you looking for? The right fit. All right, well, we need to elaborate on that a little bit. And they laugh and they tell me these things. They need to make sure that the person that they're going to be working so closely with fits the personality of the firm. So it's something that when you walk into a firm, you need to get a feel for it and make sure that it goes both ways. Specialization. If you look at your resume, there's almost always, and I know from the counselor's experience, a thread running through it of something that you have the experience in or you want the experience in. And you need to be highlighting these areas. If you are just blanketing a resume to every firm of such and such size, and you have, and you're targeting labor and employment firms and all of your experiences in trademarks, you're wasting paper. So maybe a little bit more of a targeted approach. How you get there, the research. You need to be doing that first and foremost, and that's something that you can be doing now, as I said. So. The pay. Yeah, the trade-off for the small firm atmosphere is the pay. They're not going to be paying $125,000 out of the chute. That may come later in these firms. There's certainly people in these firms making great money. But like has been said, somewhere between 50 and 80 is the starting salaries that I'm seeing.
Can I just say, interrupt for 1 second, with smaller firms to augment your pay, and we did it, you participate, as we used to say, in whatever cases you bring into the firm. So this standard is, if you bring a case in the firm, you get a third of the legal fee. And this applies almost from day one, as long as you're a lawyer, because firms can't share fees with non-lawyers. So get admitted as soon as you can. Don't dawdle on that paperwork. And that's why you also want to be part of bar associations even after you get a job. And not necessarily committees that, you certainly want to be part of a committee that is in your area of interest and your area of practice, but perhaps another committee, because if, for example, like me, if I was just with criminal lawyers on their committees, they wouldn't refer me cases because they would keep it themselves. But if I joined another kind of committee, a federal courts committee or something like that, the real estate lawyers or the other kinds of lawyers on that committee, if they had a client with a criminal problem, they would refer it to me. So you want to get to know lawyers not in your practice area, so they will refer cases when they come across them. But remember, with small and bigger firms, I don't think they let you participate in the fees like smaller firms do. So you can make, depending on your practice area, you can make a lot of money with that. And that's more of your networking experience will help you bring those cases in.
The other trade-off is that you're not, at a firm of the type that we're speaking of, you're not going to have the billable hours demands that the small firms have. So you will have a life. So that's very important to a lot of people, and it's important to these people that I speak to. You know, they say, yeah, Jill, I work 8:30 to 7, and I don't come in on Saturdays unless I'm on trial or something like that. And that is a much more, you know, livable lifestyle, certainly, than some of the big firms might demand. So there is that trade-off. I told you to remember that you're being hired by the whole firm, not just by the interviewing or hiring partner. Keep that in mind. The networking, you know, think outside of the box. That's a lot of what you have to be doing right now. When you're networking, yeah, the bar associations obviously are very fertile ground, but you might want to consider, for example, say that you are interested in construction law, and you're a woman. There's a Women in Construction meeting. I think they do have it monthly, and it's the executives of the construction companies. It's listed in Cranes every week. Cranes is something that you might want to consider reading. It's not a legal publication, but you know, lots of executives read that, and you don't know where it's going to lead.
We get it in the Career Center.
Yeah, we get it in the Career Center. So definitely think out of the box. If you haven't already come to visit the Career Center and met with a counselor on a one-on-one, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Why not have as many people as you can take a look at what you're doing and you know, help you tweak it. The other thing is when you're doing the research, make sure that before you go in for any interview, you know as much about that firm as possible. You know, down to cases that they've recently done. I won't recall that I had to do a presentation in front of a partnership of a firm, and there were 30 attorneys in there, and when one gentleman opens his mouth, he spoke with an accent from Maine, and I remembered that he was from Bangor, I think, and I said something, and that man will never forget me, because, you know, I could come up with that off the top of my head. It's those types of things that set you apart from the other interviewees. As well as, I mean, I speak to some of the firms and they say, I said, well, do you get a lot of writing candidates? And one person had a stack like this of writing candidates. So if there's not something to differentiate you on that stack, it's kind of a waste of paper. So, you know, work with all the resources you have here to do so. And like I said, I'm bringing things in every day, so keep looking. I think that this spring OCI is going to be very different and larger than we've seen in the past because of, I'm seeing a lot of even corporations for summers for next year say, yeah, you know, maybe we'll come down and see a whole bunch of people at the same time. Great idea. So, you know, keep an eye out.
Let me wrap up by saying this is a difficult year, which you have all no doubt heard. So, well, I will validate that for you. The hiring will be less in the large firms, and it's going to be harder. But I will tell you this. We are seeing lots of part-time jobs come in from the smaller firms, which is always a good indicator of where they are. We will begin to see postgraduate job listings from those firms start to come in as we get closer to the bar results. That's postgraduate for the class of 2002. I also want to tell you that there is a definite correlation between those graduates who don't have jobs at graduation and who don't use the Career Center. A very striking correlation. Much more striking than where they are in the class or even experience, because what we see are job search documents that are simply dreadful. And remember, whether you're looking for a summer job or part-time or whatever, once that letter goes out to that particular employer, that's it. You lost the opportunity. So you really need to work closely with us. It pays off. Last year, over 50% of our graduating students got their jobs before graduation. You will too. For those of you, the vast majority of you in this room who are looking for summer jobs, there will be, and you probably don't believe this right now, there will be wonderful summer jobs listed, but it's too early. So for you too, networking, researching, doing things now, that's the key.
Hang on, here's the other one.
Did you have a good time? We didn't stay long. I was like dying. Like I was
I can't wait.